If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Connor.
Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast, the show where we fearlessly dive into the untold stories of real estate investors' greatest setbacks and how they turned those failures into resounding successes. I'm your host, Kate Berry, and we're talking with real estate investors across the country to learn exactly how and why they failed and how they took that failure and turned it into a powerful lesson for their business. So come along with me, Kate Berry, on this transformative journey from failure to fortune. I invite you to join our supportive community where together we can inspire, educate, and motivate each other to achieve all of our real estate investing goals. Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. I'm your host, Kate Berry. On this show, we fearlessly dive deep into the journeys of real estate investors and agents all over the country who have a story to share where they have turned a failure into fortune. We're here today with Jay Connor. He is a real estate investor out of Morehead City, North Carolina, who's got a ton of experience and has a great story to share about his real estate journey, has become a really successful investor and money raiser, capital investor guy. And so we're so happy to have you here today, Jay.
Kate, thank you so much for inviting me along to be on your show and talk about my most favorite topic that I'm the most passionate about, and that's private money, because private money has had more of an impact on our business than any other thing else that we started doing.
Amazing. And so there's a difference, right, between private money and hard money.
There's a big difference between private money and hard money. And, you know, so many real estate investors, new and seasoned, sort of combine those terms together. But in reality, a hard money lender typically is a brokerage that has raised private money from individuals to invest in their fund that they, in turn, the broker then turns around and loans it out to real estate investors. But in this world, when we talk private money, we're talking about borrowing money from individuals just like you and me, ordinary people that loan their investment capital and or their retirement funds to us as a real estate investor.
Very cool. This is really exciting. We haven't had a topic like this on the podcast yet, so I'm really excited to dive into it. I'd love to get started let's learn who you are. How did you get started in real estate?
Sure. Well, I was raised in the mobile home or manufactured housing business. My father his company was the largest retailer of manufactured homes for many, many years. Well, the financing for that product went away in the early 2000s. So in 2000, I knew if I ever got out of mobile homes, I wanted to get into single family houses. And so in 2003, my wife, Carol Joy, and I, we started up the company. Our first year, we only did 3 houses. But back then, Kate, I didn't know anything about private money. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know anything about hard money. I mean, we're here in Eastern North Carolina, population 40,000 people. It's like you're over here at the end of the world. And so all I knew to do, Kate, was go to the local bank, get on my hands and knees and put my hands underneath my chin and beg, please fund. But anyway, back then, you could get an unsecured line of credit. An unsecured line of credit. So I started out with a $250,000 line of credit, burning a hole in my back pocket to go invest in houses. Well, that worked great for the first 6 years. From 2003 until January 2009, that's how I funded my deals. I went to the local bank and borrowed money. But then things changed a lot in January 2009. But anyway, that's how I got started. We've rehabbed, renovated a little over 500 single family houses now in our small area of only 40,000 people. We do 2 to 3 deals a month, but our average profit now is actually $82,000 per single family house. And I don't say that to brag at all. The reason I share that is that it's just a point to be made that you can make significant income with not having to do a ton of wholesale deals. I've never wholesaled a deal in my life. I've stayed in
Right.
every deal, but you don't have to do a ton of deals in order to make, significant income.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's a lot of deals. 500 is not a small number. It's really quite impressive. And I'm from a rural area too. Our population of our whole county, I think, might be just 150,000. So I understand that kind of being in a market like this where you're not surrounded by wholesalers or private money lenders, people are always trying to call you to sell you on how they can fund your deals. You were doing it a little bit differently. So this is a great segue. Let's talk about January 2009.
Wow.
What
Wow.
happened?
Well, so I remember it like yesterday, Kate. And by the way, I don't know up in Vermont if you still have telephones that have handsets and cords attached to them or not. But anyway, we do here in North Carolina. Anyway, so January 2009, as I said, I had been doing the business for 6 years. I had a great relationship with my banker. His name was Steve. He and his bank that he worked for had funded a lot of houses, a lot of deals in that first 6 years. So I was sitting here, I picked up the telephone and I called up Steve, and I had 2 houses under contract to buy. And both of these houses that I already had under contract represented over $100,000 in profit between these 2 deals. So, as I had done on many deals before, I told Steve about the deals, the funding required, and I learned like that, Kate, that my line of credit had been closed, shut down with no notice to me. I mean, my first thought would have been, why didn't Steve call me up and tell me that I don't have any line of credit and I'm out here making offers, And by the way, Kate, these people that go around and saying, oh, every problem's an opportunity, I want to throw up. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. And
Yeah.
I said, Steve, why is the bank closing my line of credit? We've done a ton of deals together, got a great relationship. He said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but now you have given me a global financial crisis because I got these deals under contract and I don't have any way to fund them. So I hung up the phone and I sat here for a moment, Kate, and here's a writer downer. I thought to myself and I asked myself a question, the powers in questions. I asked myself the question, I said, Jay, who do you know that can help you with your problem? And I immediately thought of a good friend of ours, Jeff Blankenship. He lived in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time. And I called him up and I told him what had just happened. He said, Jay, welcome to the club. I said, what club? He said, the club of having your line of credit shut down. They just shut me down last week. And I said, how are you funding your real estate deals, Jeff? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs? I said, no. So I hung up from Jeff. He told me a little bit about it. I studied private money and I studied how people can take current retirement funds that they already have and transfer them with no tax effect or penalty to a IRS approved third-party custodian, self-directed IRA, loan that money out and get all the returns either tax deferred or tax free. So I studied that. And Kate, I put my program together. What I mean by my program is I put together what I was going to offer individuals that I already knew, go to church with them. They're in my cell phone. We're at the Rotary Club. And I was going to tell them how they could earn high rates of return safely and securely without pitching any kind of a deal at the same time. So what did I do? You know what, Kate? I've never asked anybody for money since 2009. And people say, Jay, how have you got $8.5 million available to you in private money without ever asking for money? Here's the secret. I put on my teacher hat, and my teacher hat is my private money teacher hat. So it's all about leading with education.
Yes.
Did you know? So my wife, Carol Joy, and I, we've got 47 private lenders right now funding our deals, loaning us money. And you know what? Not one of them had ever heard of private money until I told them about it. And none of them had ever heard of self-directed IRAs until I told them about it. And so instead of having one banker, we got a lot more. We've spread the risk, so to speak. So not one lender, we got 47. But in truth, it really did turn out to be the biggest blessing in disguise of anything that's happened in the business I had to find a better and quicker way to fund my deals instead of relying on traditional money. And what I love about this world is we get to make the rules. You know, the traditional way of borrowing money is you get on your hands and knees and beg. They make the rules. The lender makes the rules. Not in this world of private money.
Totally.
We met the rules. I set the interest rate. I set the terms, the frequency of payments, and then I teach that program to individuals. And another thing that I've never done, I've never asked for money, is I've never pitched a deal. I've never pitched a deal. And they say, how do you get your private lenders to fund it? I call them up with the good news phone call. I separate the conversation between teaching the program and how they can earn high rates of return safely and securely and having a deal for them to fund. So when I got a deal for them to fund, I give them what we call the good news phone call. I call them up and I say, I got great news. I can now put your money to work. And by the way, I'm ethically bound to do that, because if they moved retirement funds over to a self-directed IRA company, they're not making any money until I put their money to work. So they're sitting by the phone waiting for the phone call. So I give them the good news phone call. I now put your money to work. I got a house in Newport, after repaired value of $200,000. The funding required is $150,000. I know they got it. They already told me. And funding is next Friday. You need to have your funds wired by next Thursday to my real estate attorney. I'll have my attorney email you wiring instructions. The most stupid thing I could ask them is, do you want to fund the deal? Of course they want to fund the deal. They've been waiting for the phone call.
Right. I love what you're saying, because actually one of our most recent guests, the Kitty sisters, were on. They raised private money. And it was really interesting what they said. You know, their big mistake was that they tried to get the deal first and then started raising money. And what they said is, you really have to raise the money first. And that comes from building a network of high net worth individuals, or just folks that have money that really should be doing more work for them. And if you can provide something that with a higher rate of return than what they have their money in currently. But it's so true. I love what you said, that, you know, you do have to teach people, because this information is not taught across the board, or it's not general knowledge. It's not common knowledge. And I think it's also something that a lot of folks maybe feel hesitant or worried to get into. Did you experience any hesitation with world financial crisis of folks trying to get them to invest in real estate?
Well, that's just it. I didn't try to get anybody to invest in real estate because, well, I'll answer your question with a short story. So I put my program together, and so it was a Wednesday night at Bible study here in Morehead City. Carol Joy and I are involved here in the local church. So there was a gentleman I wanted to approach. And so his name was Wayne. And so I walked into Bible study, Kate, at 7:30 on a Wednesday night. And Wayne was standing there in the foyer. And I walked up to him and I said, Wayne, I got something that I want to visit with you confidentially about after Bible study. Can we get together for a few minutes? He said, sure. And so Bible study goes by. And so we get together after Bible study and we walk down to the nursery in the building and shut the door. And here's exactly, so I'm answering the question, did I hear any resistance when I started in 2009? So here's exactly here's another example of not asking for money. How do you do it without asking for money?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we shut the door. So I looked at this is called the indirect method. I have the direct method. I'm going to share right now the indirect method, not asking for money. So I looked at Wayne. Here's exactly what I said to him. I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town and county. And he did. He was the original Zenith television dealer in Morehead City. And if somebody is listening to this show and you don't know what the Zenith television dealer is, that just means you're too young to remember life before Walmart come into town selling TVs. You went to the local Zenith television dealer and they financed your TV for it. And they actually would repair your TV instead of you throwing it out. Anyway, I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. You're plugged in everywhere. You're very involved in the Rotary Club. And I said, Wayne, I need your help. Now, there's a writer downer right there. I need your help. I said, Wayne, I have now opened up my real estate investing business by referral only to where I'm now paying insane high rates of return to people that are looking for high rates of return and they're not happy with, what they're getting in the local CD or whatever. What I need your help with, Wayne, is when you run across somebody that's complaining about losing money in the stock market or the volatility of the stock market or not making good money with a certificate of deposit, would you please refer them to me so I can tell them about my program? What do you think Wayne said? Wayne said, well, now, Brother Jay, what you got in mind? What kind of interest rate are you paying? And I said, Wayne, are you saying you might be interested? He said, yeah, I might be interested. He says, we're only making 3% in the local bank. And that's what it was in 2009. Only
Which
making
sounds
3% do I now?
They said that sounds great now.
I know. So he said, we're only making 3% in the local bank and the stock market's all over the place. It's volatile. He said, what kind of rate are you paying? I said, well, Wayne, what sounds high to you? He says, well, we're getting 3% at the bank. He says, I don't know, maybe 5% or 6%. And I said, Wayne, I can't pay you 5% or 6%, but I can pay you 8%. He said, put me down for $250,000. So the next day I went to his and his wife's home and I explained the whole program, like how they can get their money back early if they have an emergency and the frequency of payments and all that, And so that 250 quickly became 500,000. They always have more than they tell you. So anyway, you notice in that short little story, I didn't ask him if he wanted to invest with me. I asked for his help to spread the word. And by the way, Wayne and his wife for years referred a lot of people, other people, to us to learn how they could take advantage of it as well. I mean, I didn't ask him. I asked him for help. I asked him to help spread the word, but I didn't ask him for money directly.
And I love that you went to someone that you did know already. I think a lot of us, especially if you're new into real estate, you may feel a little awkward or embarrassed to talk to people that you know about real estate investing, but you already had a lot of years of deals under your belt. You're going into raising money with a lot of confidence in your market, in your systems, in your program. But I'm curious to know how it felt for you to be in an unknown market now. How are you able to promise? I'm sorry about that. Let me try this again. How are you able to promise or feel confident in the returns in now a very volatile market? Can you dive a little bit deep into how you were doing that?
Absolutely. So I felt confident then, and I feel confident today. Well, first of all, out of all these private lender loans that we've done, every private lender note, 100% of them have gotten paid 100% of the interest that was due to them. Now, let's be transparent. Do renovations, when you're flipping properties, do renovations ever go over budget? Every time. They go over budget every time. It always costs more than you estimate repairs to be, and et cetera. So here's how everybody's protected. You don't want to borrow, or at least I don't, borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value. Now, I didn't say 75% of the purchase price. Big difference. 75% of the after repaired value. So that when that home is renovated, there's what I call a 25% equity cushion to give room for the market to be volatile in case prices start coming down, to where if I have to reduce the price before it's sold, well, I'm not going to have to reduce it 25% if I just bought it 6 months ago, if I'm getting in and getting out. So that's how we're protecting our private lenders. And so another quick example, and I'll turn it back to you. If I'm borrowing money on an after repaired value house of $200,000, and I'm using small numbers because it just makes easy calculation. Sure. And if I'm not going to borrow more than 75% of that $200,000, the after repaired value, so I'll borrow up to $150,000. But a home that's needing a rehab or renovation, I buy them all the time, purchase price at 50% or 40% of the after repaired value. So if I bought that house for $100,000 and I borrow $150,000, well, we get all the rehab money up front. They wire the whole $150,000 to the closing agent. I'm bringing home a $50,000 check when I do that deal, but I'm using the majority of that money to renovate the house.
Right.
So how is everybody protected? Well, the offer, by having that 25% cushion, In addition to that, we don't borrow any unsecured funds. All of our private lenders get their own promissory note. They get their own deed of trust in North Carolina. Most people call it a mortgage, and that collateralizes the note. And so the bottom line is, if you are the borrower, here's another writer downer. If you don't pay them, the property does, right? So they would get the property in case you fail to pay. We also name them on the insurance policy, the private lender, as a mortgagee, so that if there's a claim against that property, then the insurance company is going to make that check payable to the private lender and to your company. So we have multiple layers of protection protecting the private lender.
Nice. That's excellent. And what I'm really hearing from you is that you have great systems in place. And, when you have a deal, of course, it's about the formula and the calculations we're putting into the before and after. But something that a lot of investors don't consider is the turnaround time. You've got to do it quickly. And to be able to do it quickly and efficiently, effectively, you've got to have good systems in place. So do you have a setup, your own construction guys? Like, how are you making it happen in the real world?
You're exactly right, Kate. It really does come down to your team. And we've just been so blessed to have just a fantastic team. So, for example, in fact, our acquisitionist that talks to sellers, of course, we don't buy any houses in the multiple listing service and haven't for a long time. There's no inventory.
You're sourcing your own deals from the start.
Yeah, so we're getting everything, off market for sale by owners.
Yep.
So I've got the same acquisitionist that talks to sellers. She's been with us for 18 years talking to sellers. But in answer to your question, how do we get them done? So we have our own crew. That's a crew of 6. And depending on most of the time, it's taken all 6 to work on a property. But if it's a small property with just cosmetic, we can divide that crew up. And then in addition to that, I also work with 2 general contractors. Here in North Carolina, there's a law. If you're buying a house and you're rehabbing it and renovating it for the purpose of selling it within the next 12 months, you have to be a general contractor or use a general contractor for that. And so I've worked with 2 other general contractors. So we can have about 6 houses going on simultaneously with the contractors and the crew that we have in place.
Nice. That's great.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It wasn't that way all the time.
Sure, I'm sure, 2009 to 2024, that's been, about 13, 14 years. And so if you could kind of talk to yourself back then in 2009, or, there's a lot of our listeners who are new to real estate investing, want to get started, want to start a career. What advice would you give to yourself and or to those listening?
Don't start in this real estate investing world the way I did. don't start during a
financial crisis.
So what do I mean by that? You see, those first 6 years where I was relying on the local bank, I was relying on my experience in the mobile home business, which is totally different than this business. The only thing they got in common is I was helping people own a home, right?
Right.
But when you bought a mobile home, that came from the factory. So,
right.
So very, very different business. So all I did was read a few books and rely on my common sense and, my past experience. Not the way to go. So my advice is, when you're starting out, start out working with someone that has been through the minefield, that's made very expensive mistakes, that can help you as you're starting out not make the mistakes. So I just so wish I had gotten a mentor or a coach when I had started out. Working with somebody that, and by the way, when you go to work with a mentor or a coach, make sure they're still in the business and they're not teaching you stuff that they used or knew 10 years ago, because
it doesn't apply anymore.
The way I was sourcing deals 10 years ago doesn't even vaguely look like the way I source deals today. So that's my big piece of advice. And another piece of advice that sort of goes along with that is, even after you get started, stay connected in a mastermind. For goodness sakes, your local RIA, Real Estate Investor Association. Stay connected with like-minded people that are doing what you are doing. I mean, Don't try to be out on an island by yourself figuring this out. It's so
Yes.
important to be connected. And by the way, don't take advice from those real estate investor association members that just talks about deals and they ain't never done a deal, right?
Yep.
Be
That's
careful
so
who you get. Be careful who you get your advice from.
It's true, that because there's so much advice out there right now, and real estate especially can be sold in this get rich quick, all you have to do, right? I think every person I've talked to that is successful is they know how hard it is and how much work you have to put into it to really get to that level, the level that you're performing at. And when you're talking with someone like you, it does sound so easy because it's because it's simple. It's a simple concept, but the execution of it takes experience, takes guts, it takes a certain mindset. And so I love your advice about joining a team, especially and surrounding yourself with people that are doing it. Because like you said, you're a teacher. And the way that you do more deals is by teaching others, because you can't do deals if the people that you're trying to raise money from don't know what they're getting into.
Exactly. Exactly.
I,
By
I
the
think
way,
that's
I'm
really,
so
really,
glad. Did you say it was the Kitty Sisters? Is that what it was
yes,
on your show?
yes,
Well, I want to have them on my podcast
perfect.
because they are one of the very few other people that I've ever heard say, because you repeated it, get the money lined up first. Kate, I know you've heard this and it just drives me crazy. I mean, you've heard it, I know, 100 times or maybe 1,000. You've got educators and people out there that are saying on their soapbox, oh, just get the deal under contract.
Right.
The money will show up. And I want to go, where is the money going to show up? Is it just like going to rain out of clouds or something,
Yeah,
And,
the stork just drops it off.
I mean, it just drives me. I had a guest on my podcast, which is called Raising Private Money, by the way. Anyway, I had a
Perfect.
guest on my podcast, I don't know, a few months ago, and we were having this conversation about which should you focus on first, getting deals under contract or the money. And he is of the same mindset we are. Let's get the money lined up. There's always going to be deals,
Right.
always going to be deals. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, why in the world are other people out there saying, oh, just get the deal under contract and the money will show up? He said something I'd never heard before, and it makes total sense. He said, I can tell you why they say that. They say that because they're selling a course on how to find deals and get them under contract.
Right.
I said, well, that makes
It's like
sense to
this
me.
vicious cycle, right? You just like keep going around and around. There's so many folks that will spend, I've heard I've spent $10,000 on this program or this mindset mastermind, learning how to get the deal. And it's like there will, of course, always be deals. But I think we touched upon a little bit, it's about that turnaround time. And when you're raising private money, you have cash available at your fingertips. So you can now then make that deal happen faster. So you find the deal first, and now you put yourself in a 45-day financing contingency or a 90-day or 100 days to now raise that money. That's a lot of time passed, especially in real estate today. Things change so quickly and you've got to be nimble, right? So that's what I'm hearing from your strategy is when you have the cash, that's quick, you can do the turnaround quickly. Now you can get to work, do that renovation, get it back on and flipped.
Absolutely. As you just said, time kills deals.
All
The
deals.
the quicker, yeah, time
It does.
the quicker you can close on that deal.
So Jay, we were just talking about your systems and how you're such an you're an effective capital raiser, but you're also really effective at closing the deals and getting your investors their money back. And we were talking about how the time is so critical in this process. So can you bring us through a little bit the timeline for getting a deal to finish? How long does it take?
Sure. Well, as we were saying, when I said time kills deals, what I mean by that is, the more time that goes by between talking to a seller, getting it under contract and actually closing, the less likely that it will close. In fact, here's how I play that out. I have bought many houses to where we would negotiate the deal, and the seller would say, off market, not in the multiple listing service, the seller would say, I don't want to sell yet. I don't want to sell for 2 months, or I don't want to sell for 3 months. Well, how we go ahead and get that deal is I'll say, look, what if we go ahead and close now? I'll give you half of your proceeds now, so you can go ahead and have 50% of your cash. You can get the other 50% when you have moved, and I'll let you stay in the house rent free all during this time. And so we're able to close it. And so that's an example of, I don't want any more time to go by, if I can make this deal. But in answer to your question, the timeline from start to finish, if I'm going to be doing a rehab or renovation, by the way, when you're going to do a buy and hold or sell on rent to own, that's called rent ovation, not renovation. Right?
Got it.
But anyway, if you're going to be doing a flip and, buy it, rehab it, renovate it, and then put it on the market to sell it, here in my local market, here's the way it works. We close on it, assuming the people have already vacated. Given we do, we got like 6 houses going on simultaneously at any time on renovations, the house could sit there literally for 2 to 3 months before the rehab actually starts,
right?
Because the general contractors are finishing up other jobs, etc. So let's say 3 months goes by. Our average rehab right now, renovation, is going to take 2 to 3 months. Something like that, depending on the extent. Because our average rehab is running, right now, $40,000 to $60,000 on the rehab.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
It sits there for 3 months. We work on it for 3 months. That's 6 months. And then we get it staged. By the way, we do a music video, and in addition to pictures, for every one of our homes that we do.
Oh, interesting.
Because that link really, really drives interest. And here's another big tip, and I'll finish the answer. But what we do when we put a house in the multiple listing service, we list it with our realtor under what's called coming soon on a Monday. Coming soon, which of course means they can watch the music video on the multiple listing service. They can look at all the pictures.
Yeah. Get excited.
But they can't get in the house.
Right.
Can't get in the house. So then we go active on Friday that week.
Nice.
And what of course I want to do is I want to build up demand and interest and have appointments set. The house we just put on the market a couple of Fridays ago, it went active on Friday, coming soon on Monday, active on Friday. By a Sunday afternoon, we had 22 showings.
Amazing.
22 showings. Just doing it like that. But anyway, back to answering your question. Buy the house, sits there 3 months maybe, start the rehab, that's 6 months, put it on the market. It could be 6 to 7 months before we're actually putting it in the multiple listing service. Closings typically are going to take no more than 4 weeks anymore these days. So we're probably in and out on average 7 months to 9 months, maybe 8 months.
Yeah, perfect. And that's why you're saying you're doing about 5 deals a year, about
30.
30.
Yeah.
6 at one time. That's what you were saying.
That's right. Yeah. So we'll do like 2 to 3 a month.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. I love that you have such great systems around your time. And I think something else to note when we're talking about renovation timelines, a lot of investors leverage their the renovation costs. So especially if they're using hard money, right? So every month that you have loans to pay off for these renovations costs is eating out of your profit at the end. But you skip that whole process because you're buying them in cash. So you don't have the same carrying costs that necessarily someone who's using leverage is going to have.
Exactly. Like with private money, there's no origination fees. There's no points.
Right.
There's no extension fees. I mean, the private lenders don't want the money back if you're, and so I'm not under the gun. Again, like we talked about earlier in the show, we make the rules. The lenders aren't making the rules. It really puts you in the driver's seat of your business and gives you just so much more control.
Absolutely. It seems to me too that this is really the way to do flips. Because I see a lot of investors talking about the BRRRR method or, buying something using all other people's money in terms of leverage or hard money. In this scenario, you are using other people's money, but you're using it in a cash way to make make it an ease transaction and also a quick turnaround, which is protecting your profits. That way you have that 25% equity kind of almost guaranteed to make sure your investors stay happy. So now you've got happy investors, you have happy sellers and clients because you're now producing a track record, you're turning around everything that you're doing, and it's just all that creates that great momentum.
That's it. That's it. And I did not know all this when I started.
Right.
But that makes a good point. Don't wait until you know it all, because guess what? You're never going to know it all.
Nope.
I keep learning every day, every week.
That's right. So let's bring it back full circle. What are you looking towards next? Do you feel like you've perfected your system and you're keep going this path now? Or how do you view the current real estate market? Do you anticipate any trends? Do you have to be a little nimble right now? Or what's going on with your world today?
Well, I like it when things tighten up, because it gets rid of those that don't know what they're doing.
True. Yes, absolutely. Clears the deck, clears the playing field, right?
That's right. When I went through the 2009 thing that I shared earlier, that cleared the deck quite a bit,
Sure.
and it would have cleared my deck.
Right.
We always have a choice. And I could have gone to the house and said, I've lost my line of credit at the bank. Oh, well, can't get deals funded anymore. So that right there is probably one characteristic of successful real estate investors, and that is resiliency.
Absolutely.
Resiliency. Because as you very well know, Kate, if it can go wrong, it's going to go wrong, right? So that's another big reason to surround yourself with people that know what they're doing, what you're doing, because that's what I did. I reached out to my friend Jeff and I said, what am I going to do?
What do I do?
And there's a lot of value in admitting and taking action on when you need help.
Absolutely.
But what's next for me? I'm just so passionate these days about being on a mission to share my knowledge and my experience on raising private money with as many real estate investors as I can. My wife, Carol Joy, and I, we're traveling quite a bit right now, speaking to real estate investing groups. Say a week from Monday, I am doing a Zoom presentation to two of the largest real estate investing associations in the nation. And so that's really what the business we've got, the real estate investing business, I'm in it less than 10 hours a week because of the amazing team that we have in place, which allows me to really go for my passion now. And that's making a difference in other people's lives, giving back and making an impact.
That's fantastic. I love that. I think that's really great for our listeners to hear too. I think those that are most successful are the most willing to share how they became successful. And they want to, it's almost like people we want to share so badly. For anyone listening that's new and wants to learn how to start doing this, reach out to Jay. We're going to have your link in our show notes, and you've got a book that I'd love to hear more about.
Absolutely. So I finally, it was painful. But anyway, I finally finished my book. It's a bestseller on Amazon. It's $20 on Amazon, but your listeners, Kate, get my book for free. Just cover shipping. And it's not an ebook. It's like a book. Believe it or not, the Postal Service is still in business. But anyway, the book is called Where to Get the Money Now. Subtitle, How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Relying on Hard Money Lenders or Institutional Money. And the link to get the book, I'll autograph it. We'll priority mail it, 3-day priority, is jayconner, JAYCONNER.com/book. So I'm an ER, not an OR. So JAYCONNER.com/book. And also, I invite your audience to come over and check out my podcast, which is titled Raising Private Money. So all you do is just type in your favorite podcast platform, Raising Private Money. You don't even have to put my name in there, but the actual name is Raising Private Money with Jay Conner. I have amazing guests on there. talk about how they've raised private money. For sure want to have those kitty sisters.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to connect to you after this episode. And they were literally the episode right before this. So anyone that's listening, listen to the episode right before. We're going back to let's have the mindset of raise the money first and then
Yes.
find the deal. Build the relationships first, build your systems first, get the experience you need so that you're credible, join a team, start teaching yourself. Like I love that you said in the beginning, you taught yourself. You went out and found the books on how to do this. You have written a book on how to do this.
Yes.
It's a to-do step-by-step guide on how to raise private money. And I can't wait to get my copy. So thank you so much, Jay, for joining us today. And I hope to have you on again soon.
Awesome. Kate, thank you so much. God bless you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you, listeners. This is the Real Estate Investing Podcast from Failures to Fortunes. I'm Kate Berry, your host, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Real Estate Investing Failures to Fortunes podcast. If you enjoyed today's stories and insights, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us. Remember, your journey in real estate is a marathon, not a sprint. Embrace the failures, learn from them, and turn them into your stepping stones to success. I'm Kate Berry, and until next time, keep hustling, stay inspired, and keep turning those failures into fortunes. Happy investing.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/moneyguide. That's jconner.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.